Hey guys, Zach here from BIMteriors. And before we even get into this week's episode, I really want to just take a moment and thank you. I just saw we're over 600 subscribers, which is wild to me. This was I started out as a fun way of sharing information and wasn't sure if I was going to hit. And we've slowly started to build this small community, which is so great to be able to share and help you guys transition into the Revit world as interior designers, as architects. So, this week's episode, we're going to talk about view filters. This is a tool that I wish I had access to way sooner in my career um, than I actually got into it. I think when you first get into Revit, you use the hide and view, which we've realized is a big no-no. There's a lot of issues with hiding in view, or sometimes hitting that right click and overriding those elements to what you want it to look like. And I think we discovered in previous episodes where view templates are amazing. They allow you to customize what you see, how you see it, do you want to see it in specific views, from your partitions to your ceilings to your elevations, architectural details, whatever it may be. But there's restrictions on this. So as you start to hide these elements, they might hide all of those categories. And that's not what you want. You might just want one specific family or one specific element that you want to have control over, to change, to hide, whatever it may be, but you don't want to do it to the rest of the category. And so this is where filters are one of the most, in my opinion, powerful tools within Revit. And I think once you see this tutorial, once you understand this tool, it will change the way you view filters and the way your work flows within your studio. So let's jump into this week's episode. Hey guys, so we're going to be talking about view filters, and in today's episode, what we're really going to focus on are two types. One, being able to hide or control the visibility graphics of a certain element. So sometimes what we want to do is we want to hide a wall or a plumbing fixture or a furniture element, but sometimes when we actually do that in our visibility graphics, it hides the whole entire category. And that's not what we want. Maybe we want a one-off, like either a specific family or a type of that family. And we're going to touch upon that with view filters. But also, if you want to have control of maybe highlighting something, overriding something specifically, and maybe it's a wall, and maybe it's a certain type of wall, and we want to make sure that that one's filled in a different color than the rest, we now have that control over our elements on our plans. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about and going over. Okay, so we are talking about filters, and at first what we're going to do is talk about the filter portion where we want to hide something, having that extra level of control. So in the past, if we wanted to hide something or have control of certain views of elements in our view, we would have to go to our view templates or visibility graphics and go from there. And what I found is that even internally or kind of as trying to clean up our views to hide certain things in our linked models, what would happen is I'd want to turn off a specific category, but it would turn off the whole category. So for this instance, maybe it's that floor drain icon family that I'm seeing in my washrooms. I don't want to see it. I want to start to clean that up. However, I scroll in and I start to select over that, I can see that the category is a plumbing fixture. So if I were to go to my visibility graphics, hide plumbing fixture, it's going to turn off my sink, my washroom, like my toilet, sorry, and any other elements that are on that category. And that's not what we want. I want this specific one. But I also don't want to go to every single instance and turn these off manually, because that's not the best approach and such a waste of time. So this is where view filters are so powerful that you can now control if there's something in a plumbing fixture or something in one of your categories, you can now go one step further and have control of hiding or overriding those elements. So where do we go? Where do we start? At the top of your ribbon under view, you can see here on the left-hand side, you have a tool and an icon called filters. If you select on this, and again, this is the out of the box, so sample project that Revit has included in Revit 2024, and there's already built-in ones. And so some of you might already have this part of your studio templates, or it might be empty because maybe your studio is not using these to where they can be. So in this case here, we're going to go to the new icon because we want to create a new one. And what I would recommend is creating a filter name that not just you understand, but also your teammates. So maybe we can keep this as simple as, if I could spell properly today, hide floor drains. And it could be as simple as that. And I've hide floor drains, and I'm going to call this 02 because I've created one of these as I was testing this out just to make sure that it wasn't a live example and this worked. So I'm going to hit OK. And then what we want to do under categories, I'm going to want to scroll down. We know it's a plumbing fixture category, so I'm going to scroll down to find plumbing fixtures and select it. Then we now transfer over to the filter rules. And before we get going, I want to explain the and, or. So if you have multiple rules that you want your filter then to include, the and, you'll have to include all of those rules to actually make sure that that filter works. So if one doesn't hit, the filter and the rule that you're trying to apply, the filter you're trying to create won't work. If you use or, it just has to hit one of those rules that you're creating for that filter for it to actually work. So in this case, I'm just creating one filter or one rule, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to keep it at the and rule. Under our plumbing fixture, we can then find and create a filter that's looking for a certain parameter. So in this case here, I might want it to be, I remember what the type name was. So I'm going to hit type name. And then now it's kind of further going into that to say, what is that type name? And all the options of equal, does it contain, is it greater than? So depending on the filter you're trying to create, these are the options that you're left with. And I'm going to say contain, and I know the name of that type name. So I'm going to come in here and just type in floor drain -2D for this specific family. So once you're happy with the filter you've created, the rules that you've created, you can hit OK, and nothing's happened. And that's fine because we've just created the filter, but we actually haven't applied it to this view or to your template. So what we want to do is come to your view template in this case, or your visibility graphics, and we want to override our filter options. And then so we're going to find here our parameter, our filters, and we're going to edit. And you can see here that filter that we've just created is not here. So what we want to do is go to add a filter. We're going to want to find the one that we've created of hide floor drain 02, hit OK. So we want to make sure that the filter is first enabled. It's going to work. It's turned on. And then we want to make sure in this case here, in this example, we want to hide these floor drains in our view. So we're going to want to make sure that the visibility is checked off. And once you've done so, hit OK, hit OK. And you can see now, wait for a second, that now your floor drains is turned off. But the great thing is none of your other plumbing fixtures have been altered or turned off, but only the ones specifically our floor drains in this example has turned off. So this is a powerful tool internally for some of the elements that you're modeling, but you might not want to show up in certain views. Or great as like we've linked in all of our consultant models, but there's just so much stuff showing up that we really don't want to see in our backgrounds. So using your view templates in the past or your visibility graphics overrides was not the best approach because it would turn off the whole entire category. And this gives you one extra layer of control to getting the views where you want them to be. So now what happens with view filters when we don't want to hide these elements? We want to actually control maybe their line weights, maybe a fill pattern from plans to elevation. This is where actually I'm going to use floor drains again because we've got this view filter created already, so we don't have to go through this, but you can use this for any element from plumbing fixtures, maybe furniture, maybe walls, maybe doors, anything that you want to highlight or have another level to be able to control. We're going to go through that exercise right now. So instead of going to view, we're going to use the floor drains. So what I'm going to do is come back to my view template. I'm then going to go to my visibility graphic override by filters. And again, we're going to add our floor drain that we've just created. So maybe instead of, this is the floor drain that says hide, but in this case, we're not going to hide it. I'm going to hit one. So hopefully that's not confusing. We want to make sure our filter is enabled, aka it's turned on. We want to make sure the visibility this time is turned on. We don't want to hide it, but now we want to go into our projections or surfaces or our cuts or our halftowns. Now we have additional categories that we can start to override. So in this case here, maybe we want this to be pink. We really want to highlight our floor drains in that certain color in the specific view. So in some views, we might not want to see it. And in other views, we might want to highlight it with a certain color. We want it to pop, whatever it may be. And so in this case here, I'm going to give it a solid fill. And we're going to go find that our pink color. And I'm going to go maybe one step further. Maybe I want to give this a transparency of 50. Now, side note, if in our case here, I know the way our studio works, we have UNIC hatches, areas that's not part of our scope. And what we do is we put a filled region over top of it. And I find that if you go to print, even though you make it opaque, transparent within the hatch, I find when you hit print, it actually comes in the foreground. And meaning like if you were creating a filled region, and a hatch, that's kind of going to show the NIC area, but you want to see the walls, you want to see the elements, the plumbing fixtures, whatever it may be. It prints and you can't see any of that. So tip and tricks on how to be able to do so: create a filter for it and then come into this field and give it a transparency here. I find it prints better. Why? I don't know. It's just one of those rules of Revit that cannot be explained. So I'm going to kind of make sure we're going to go back to our floor drain. It's on. I want it to show up, and I want to control in these specific views. I want to highlight it with a pink color with a transparency. I'm going to hit OK. Hit OK. And if we did that right, these should turn up in pink. So in anywhere where these in this view template, anywhere where the floor drains are going to come up, they will instantly turn pink. So again, you can use this in so many different ways, from plans to elevations to sections, you name it. If you want to start to manipulate how things look, from their line types to their surface patterns to their colors, you now have that control. That's a wrap on filters in Revit. Hopefully that you got that aha moment as I did when I first came across filters, and just realized the ways that you were doing it were maybe not the most efficient. And this is going to save you so much time and have so much more control over your views in your project. If you're hearing this message, it means you've watched the new video all the way to the end. And for that, I thank you. Please like and subscribe below to gain access to new Revit content as soon as I can get them to you.